friends, welcome back to my channel and welcome to this week's reading vlog. This week I have decided to challenge myself. So typically I like to read books in one sitting. If you did not know, have a 9 to 5 and then I also have a side gig. So that being said, I usually find myself with 4 hours here, 6 hours there, and that kind of enables me to pick up a book and finish it. So instead, this week, I'm going to be trying to read 200 pages a day. Now, this vlog is running Monday through Friday, and as you can tell from the lighting, we're kind of getting a late start today. Just between my two jobs, I was a little bit busy. But that being said, I have decided to start by picking up Where the Dark Stands Still. So our goal today is to get 200 pages into this book. Now, if you did not watch my March TBR, I pulled this for a book that I bought solely for the cover prompt because look at that cover, isn't it gorgeous? This was actually a new release I was super excited about last year, and then it kind of fell to the wayside as I got caught up in other things. But the premise of this book is about a girl who would like to banish her magic, and in order to do so, she needs to acquire a magical plant. She has to go into the woods to acquire said flower, and in doing so, she meets the demon and cuts a deal with him. He will provide the plant that she needs to banish her powers if she will serve him for a year. So I've heard great things. I've heard that it very much has Studio Ghibli and Howl's Moving Castle vibes. And if that is the case, I am bound to love it. So I'm going to get into this book and I will check in with you when I hit the 200 page mark. All right, my friends, it is officially Tuesday. Different day, same spot. This is day 2 of our reading 200 pages per day for a week challenge. I am happy to report that day 1 was in fact a success. I got 208 pages through Where the Dark Stands Still. Now, I read 208 because that brought me to the end of chapter 23 instead of stopping mid-chapter. So, this book, I am enjoying the heck out of it. Now, I know that it has been mentioned that it is similar to Howl's Moving Castle, that has Studio Ghibli vibes. I would agree that there are elements of Howl's Moving Castle in here, but I would say the story is unique enough, so I do not consider it like a one for one. But the similar elements, I would say, are the Leshies, which is the Warden of the Woods. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I did listen to the first couple chapters via audiobook because I noticed that a lot of the names were Polish and a lot of the names of clothing, like traditional Polish clothing, were used. And so I just wanted to see if I could get a handle on the pronunciation because my tongue does not wrap itself easily around Polish at all. But the Leshy's affliction, I would say, is somewhat similar to Howl's, although its cause is much more malicious than I would say Howl's was. And then also the manor that the Leshy lives in is somewhat sentient, sort of like the castle. And there is a house spirit named Yaga, which is just doing it for me. Oh my gosh, her sense of humor is amazing. She's always down for Liska's shenanigans, and I am just, honestly, she might just be making the book for me. She is, like I said, a house spirit that Liska summons early in her stay. So you kind of can summon them by leaving offerings out, and they will eventually, if you're persistent enough, show up. And you find out that at some point, the Leshy had banished Yaga because Yaga was a little bit too honest. And the Leshy did not appreciate it. So in a fit of temper, he banished her. So I would say that also kind of lines up a little bit with Howl's temperament of, if something is not agreeable, then we ignore it. But with that being said, the start of this book follows Liska as she enters the spirit wood in order to obtain the fern flower, which is said to be able to remove one's magic. And Liska would like to remove her magic. In this world, people having magic is very, very rare. So it makes Liska an outsider, and she's also unable to control it. And she alludes kind of to something happening in her past that causes her to want to get rid of it. And at the point I just reached in the book, we finally find out what happened that made Liska so determined to get rid of her magic. And as she goes into the woods, she encounters a being that she doesn't initially realize is the Leshy. And once she gets to the manor, he reveals himself and is like, "What are you doing? Why are you taking stuff from my house?" And she explains herself. And initially, he doesn't understand her. He's like, "Why would you want to get rid of this?" And she doesn't initially explain herself to him because she's so traumatized by the events that led her to this point. And he's like, "Well, I don't get you, but I will cut you a deal. If you serve me for a year, I will give you the fern flower directly. You don't have to steal it, and you can get rid of your magic." Hello, my dear. I'm trying to film a clip. Do you mind giving me a second? But pardon her. But she eventually agrees to his terms, and he wants her to be in his service because he believes that her magic will be able to assist him in protecting the wood and also assist him in doing other things. Little does he know, she has kind of developed a mental block, and her magic is fairly inaccessible, and when she does access it, it kind of does, in fact, blow up. So the romance in this book is just kind of still in its beginning stages at the 200-page mark. I believe this book is somewhere around the 350-page mark, so a little over halfway in, and they're just kind of circling each other. They've both kind of acknowledged that there may be feelings there, but the Leshy has some issues with relationships and intimacy. His previous relationships did not necessarily end well, especially for the other person. And so he kind of has issues with potentially putting Liska in danger by acting on his feelings for her. So I am very here for this book. Like I said, love Yaga. There is a point where Liska brings home, let me see if I can find it. Liska brings home a stray, and the Leshy disagrees with her choice. And Liska, I don't think I'm going to be able to find it just sitting here. So we're going to try and, pull it off the top of my head. Liska brings home a stray. The Leshy disagrees with her choice. And they have it out in the kitchen. And the house takes Liska's side. And so does Yaga, which is, the magic in this world is kind of described as the longer you interact with somebody, or the longer you touch something, or just the more of your essence gets transferred to something else, the more like sentient or more magical it becomes. And so because the Leshy has been living in this house for decades, centuries actually, the house is supposed to listen to him. And the house is not necessarily listening to him as they are, having it out. So I am living for the fact that the house is kind of having a mind of its own. And at one point, Liska asks Yaga, "Aren't you supposed to be serving the master of the house?" After Yaga takes her side against the Leshys, and Yaga is like, "But I am." So Yaga is just making this story for me. There are other elements about this story that I, of course, love, but Yaga is probably number one. So I am going to go ahead and finish up this book, and then we will see what I'm going to pick up next. All right, my friends, I am done with Where the Dark Stands Still. Now, this book is going to be a 4.5 star. It was this close to being 5-star, but it has a type of ending that I can't fault, but nor am I 100% happy with. And I'm not going to specify what kind because, of course, that would ruin the book. But read it for yourself so you can judge it for yourself. But otherwise, this book, 4.5 stars. I loved Liska. I love the fact that she was a main character with a spine, but not necessarily a badass. Do I love me a good assassin badass type character? Yes. but not every FMC needs to follow that archetype. And then I loved the Leshy as our MMC. He had many facets. He was very relatable in some ways while being an absolute PETA in others. And oh my gosh, did I love our found family. Yaga, as I went on and on about in my midpoint check-in, is just awesome. And in the second half of this book, she got a backstory. Yaga got a backstory, and it was good. It was so good. And I just deeply enjoyed that we actually like fleshed out her as a character. And then, of course, the stray that Liska brought home that I mentioned ends up featuring much more heavily in the second half of this book and actually plays a big part in like the final conflict. So this was just an excellent book. I would say that if you are fond of closed door spice, then this will serve that for you. The romance was on the side of a slow burn, and when they did finally get together, that's kind of the other reason I rated this book 4.5 and not 5 stars, is I just felt like the point where they got together was not quite where I would have wanted it. It comes right after a secret or a betrayal comes out on one party's behalf, and the other person, I feel like, doesn't quite get time to process how they feel about that before, they're in bed with each other. So it was a little bit ill-timed. So between that and the fact like that though the ending made sense for the story, I'm not in love with that kind of ending is the reason that it wasn't quite 5 stars. Worth the read. The magic system is not one that I have come across often, so it is unique in that sense. Like I said, the characters are top tier. So if you were interested in picking this up, please do so. It was a great book. And now for our second read, I am not 100% sure what I'm going to be reading. However, I can tell you right now that it's going to be, let's do some mental math here. So I do have, I believe, about 58 pages to finish off my obligatory 200 pages for today. I will double check that math after I'm done filming this clip just to be absolutely sure because, I went to school for photography and graphic design, not math. But I will pick out another book and I guess you shall see it shortly. Hello, my friends, and welcome to day 3 of my reading challenge now. As I'm sure you saw last night, I did end up deciding to pick up First Time Caller by Miss BK Borison. I did end up going to, I believe it was like page 68, 70, somewhere in there, just because I had to read, I think it was 56 pages or something like that. After I finished Where the Dark Stands Still, and that brought me to the second page of a chapter. So I just finished the chapter that I was on, which then means that I decided not to update you guys last night, mostly because I felt like 65, 70 pages in really wasn't sufficient to give you an idea of what was going on in the book, besides obviously what was on the synopsis on the back. So with that being said, I am now officially 283 pages into this book. So I read my 69 pages last night. I believe it was 69, like I said, somewhere between 65 and 70. And then I read my 200 pages for today, which brings me halfway, 2/3 of the way through this book. So I am ready to give you guys an update and some thoughts. So This book is about Lucy and Aiden. Aiden is a talk show host for Heartstrings, which is a radio show where you can call in and get romance advice from our host. And Aiden has steadily become more and more disillusioned with his job. He originally was very optimistic and very positive. And as he has put in more years at the radio station, he has become more and more jaded, shall we say. Additionally, Aiden has kind of sworn off love for himself because his mother has just finished up her third battle with cancer, and his parents are very, very much in love, and he really struggled watching his father try to cope with his wife's illness. So he almost doesn't want true love for himself because he doesn't want to struggle with the feelings that his father did, or at least potentially. He doesn't want to give that much of himself away. He doesn't want to be able to be hurt because of someone else's circumstances. And then there is Lucy, which is our FMC. Lucy is a single mother. She actually lives next door to her baby daddy and lifelong friend, Grayson, and his husband, Mateo. So they kind of have a family compound going, and their daughter, Grayson and Lucy's daughter, is 12. Her name is Maya, and she's precocious and scheming. So our book kind of opens up with Maya calling into Aiden's show because she feels that Lucy is lonely. Lucy really hasn't done any dating since she had Maya. And the funny thing is, this is a late night show. So our girl Lucy wakes up to hear murmurings in her house, and she's like, everybody should be in bed. Is this a home invasion? And it ends up being Maya calling in and talking to Aiden. And Lucy doesn't really give Maya a chance to explain what she's doing on the phone, talking to a strange man so late at night. So, Lucy's thinking oh, this guy is a predator from the internet. My daughter's talking to, he has no business engaging with a child. And she comes into that phone call absolutely swinging, not realizing that she is on the radio. And the greater Baltimore area can hear her go at Aiden, and that is our meet cute. Maya eventually convinces Lucy to at least finish talking to Aiden, and Lucy says some rather poignant things about how she feels about love and what she would like. She wants romance, she wants magic, and because she said such beautiful and poignant things on the airwaves, the show kind of goes viral. And so the lady in charge of the news station decides, why not try and capitalize on this and see if Lucy is down to come on the show and try to find her Mr. Right. So Lucy eventually agrees to it after some encouragement from her loved ones. And the beginnings are a little bit bumpy. The first couple dates don't go as planned. She chooses a date, Grayson chooses a date, Aiden chooses a date for her, and it just kind of never really goes to plan. But in the meantime, Lucy and Aiden clearly have some chemistry between the two of them. They are kind of fighting their attraction to each other. They don't think it's mutual. They don't think it's very professional. They don't think it's very much in the interest of the show. Aiden's kind of got his hangups about love, and therefore he doesn't want to act on his attraction to Lucy because he feels that it's a disservice to what she's looking for because he feels he can't provide it. But of course, then, he's sending her on dates with men that he chooses and is getting a little jealous. So we've kind of reached a point in our story where the two of them have decided maybe they should give it a try, even though it's really not going to end up going anywhere, which that is a tale as old as time. But I love B.K. Borson's writing, and to be honest, I think I like this book better than the Lovelight Farm series. I think that the Lovelight Farm series is a solid 4-star series. I enjoyed every single one. I loved some more than others for sure. I think, what is it? Caleb and Layla's book was my favorite by far. But I am enjoying this even more than those books. I will see you guys tomorrow, hopefully while it's daylight outside. We can get a check-in when it's daylight outside. But I will check in with you tomorrow with final thoughts on our book here, and then we will pick our last read. All right, my friends, welcome to day 4 of this reading challenge. I have officially finished First Time Caller by B.K. Borison, and I am happy to report that this is, in fact, a 5-star read. I have been having such good luck with this video, so, maybe I should do these more often. But with that being said, when I left off during my check-in, Lou and Aiden had just kind of started acting on their feelings, and I'm happy to report that the third act breakup in this story was not annoying. Maya, Lou's daughter, adorable. I really loved the bond that she and Aiden formed in this story. I also really love the fact that Aiden was kind of able to find his own place within Lou's found family. I deeply enjoyed this book. It is, I think I might have said when I first introduced it, a Sleepless in Seattle inspired storyline with the radio show hosts thing. And that was really fun. I don't think I've ever read a romance with that sort of plot line. So points for originality. And here's the thing. I'm hoping that the next book after this one, I can't remember what it's called. I might pop it up on the screen. But I'm hoping the next book follows Aiden's boss at the radio station. Aiden's boss at the radio station is a spicy person. No nonsense, take charge, practical woman who still really cares about the people around her. And she was kind of having, shall we say, salty feelings towards the company and the gentleman trying to acquire the radio station. So there's a small part of me that's hoping that that's what the next book in the Heartstrings Interconnected Standalones is about. I don't know how many B.K. Borison is going to do, but like I said, I am loving this even more than I loved the Lovelight Farms Quartet, so fingers crossed the next one will be most excellent. So I think that brought us to, I have it written down somewhere. Hopefully I can find it. Okay, so now that I'm done with a First Time Caller, that was 136 pages, which means that I need to read, 64 more pages today in order to meet my 200-page quota. So I will be going ahead and picking up Beach Read by Miss Emily Henry. This was, in theory, where I was supposed to go after Where the Dark Stands Still, and I just got a little sidetracked by First Time Caller because I had such high hopes for that book. So we are now on to the Queen, Miss Emily Henry. I am very excited to read my first Emily Henry book because, she is very much loved. But with that being said, let's take a look at the back. Wow, this is blurred by everybody. All right, so the back of this book says, Augustus Everett is an acclaimed author of literary fiction. January Andrews writes best-selling romance. When she pens A Happily Ever After, he kills off his entire cast. They are polar opposites. In fact, the only thing they have in common is that for the next 3 months, they are living in neighboring beach houses, broke and bogged down with writer's block. Then, one hazy evening, one thing leads to another, and they strike a deal designed to force them out of their creative ruts. Augustus will spend the summer writing something happy, and January will pen the next great American novel. So basically, they're trading genres. She will take him on field trips worthy of any rom-com montage, and he'll take her to interview surviving members of the Blackwoods death cult, obviously. Everyone will finish a book, and no one will fall in love. Really? So that sounds rather exciting. We have opposites attract, maybe a little bit of rivals to lovers, maybe. But either way, this sounds like fun. So I need to get about, what was it, 64 pages in? I think that's going to take us, okay, 64 is mid-chapter. So I think that means we're going to end up, okay, we're going to have to go to 68. So I will be reading up to page 68. In what chapter is that? 68, which is chapter 8. And then I think tomorrow is our last day of this challenge because it's only running Monday through Friday. And this book is, I believe it's 358 pages. So we won't quite complete this book with this challenge, but what I think I'm going to do is we're going to read the 68 pages that I owe tonight, and then I will read my 200 pages tomorrow, and then we're going to check in. Because I think at that point I should have like 70, 80 pages left. And I'll just finish this book in this video because I don't feel like 72 pages is worth like letting roll over into something else. So I will probably not check in with you for the rest of this evening just because I feel like 68 pages really isn't sufficient to give you any more than what's on the back of this book. But I might check in like a good bit way into my 200 pages tomorrow, and then I will check in with you guys when I am done with this book. Hello, my friends. We are on our 5th and final day of my reading challenge, and I am, I think, like 2/3 of the way through this book, thereabouts. So I figured I would give a check-in. This book I am deeply enjoying. I think that this is the sort of romance where it leans a little bit on the side of literary fiction. Our female main character's name is January, and she, prior to the events of this book, has pretty much just lost her father and found out that her father has had a whole second life that she was unaware of. And not only that, but she finds out that her mom was aware. So she's kind of always held her parents' marriage in very high regard. She's a romance writer and fell into the romance genre as a way to cope with her mom getting cancer, which, what are the odds of me reading 2 romance books with a mom having cancer in this video? So apparently there's a theme, a really unfortunate one, but January kind of falls into romance as a way to kind of cope with what's going on in her life, and as a way to be like, there are happy endings out there. I can write happy endings for people. I can make it so that my characters are fulfilled and happy. And I think that that was all just a way to cope with what was going on with her mom. And then our male main character, Gus, or August, or Everett, or however you want to refer to him, a man of many names. He has kind of got his own issues. He came from a, let's say, rough childhood and has kind of always grappled with the thought of like, why do people do what they do? Why do people make poor decisions that negatively affect their loved ones? And that's kind of played into his dynamic with January, and his writing has definitely kind of explored all of those themes. But they, as the back of the book said, find themselves in the same small town, both experiencing writer's block, and they decide to make a bet. And the bet is essentially, he will write a romance novel, she will write a literary fiction, and whoever gets published first, or whoever sells their book first, the other person has to like do the blurb on the front and promote it and the whole 9 yards. And they have definitely some history prior to this book. They went to college together at the University of Michigan, And there was a kind of rivalry going there. Initially, January, thinks it was one-sided and she was really the only one competing with him. But she finds out over the course of this story that he was more aware of her than she realized. So we do love a good he falls first if that's where this is going, because that still hasn't been confirmed. I just have a sneaking suspicion. But they kind of go back and forth winning like local writing competitions and yada, yada, yada. And then once they graduate and they start being published, she compares his career trajectory to hers. So there's kind of like this whole history between the two of them before they find themselves neighbors and experiencing the same professional difficulties. And so their arrangement is essentially they will write during the weekdays, and then one night they will do research of his choosing. And that kind of research is along the lines of like interviewing people. And then she is taking him on research dates to carnivals and drive-in movie theaters. And we're starting to see them very much develop a bond. There's always been like a underlying physical attraction there. But she has kind of always felt like he's been laughing at her and he feels morally superior to her. And so she's kind of discovering that she might have been a little unfair in those opinions. So we're kind of at the point where they are starting to acknowledge that they do have an emotional bond on top of a physical attraction. And while nothing has really happened yet, I mean, they've kissed more than once. Or actually, has it just been once? They've kissed once for sure, and they've gotten very close more than once. But I'm wondering if there really will be a third act conflict, in the sense of like a lot of times the third act conflict is like we're doing okay on the surface, but underneath we're not like addressing underlying larger issues that will affect a relationship, and then it all kind of hits the fan. So there's a part of me that's wondering if, because they're kind of actively working through the issues, what the third act conflict could potentially be. I do think that there is potential there for sure, because the woman that her father was building a second life with actually lives in this town, and they've crossed paths a few times, because when you live in a small town, you really can't get away from people. So she's, for example, run into her at book club and run into her at the grocery store, and has handled it with very, very little grace, which, got to give it to her. It's very understandable. I am wondering if the third act conflict might be her finally like confronting that, because as I might have said before, her mom was aware of her dad's double life and is like deeply unwilling to talk about it. So she's kind of left screaming into the void about this whole thing. Like she doesn't have anybody who's willing to like give her any semblance of answers at the moment. So maybe we don't do a third act conflict, but we do like a third act cathartic breakdown of issues. So I don't know. I'm very excited to get to the end of this book. I will finish it tonight, and then that will be the end of this reading vlog. I will see you shortly, because I only have, I think, like 100 pages or so until the end of this book. All right, my friends, we have officially come to the end of this video, and I have finished our third and final book for our vlog. So I really enjoyed this book. I would say, I think I'm going to rate it 4 stars. The jury's still out on that one a little bit, but that's kind of where my instinct is. 4, 4.5, somewhere in there. I did really enjoy where the plot went. I do kind of think that the books that our respective main characters ended up writing, her litfic and his romance, were honestly a little bit ridiculous, but it was really cool to see them finish and be proud of work that's outside of their comfort zone. The third act conflict was not really like a big blow up, which I appreciate. They just kind of had to confront their demons in a way. Just in general, I feel like the ending and like the epilogue was very true to our main characters' personalities, and how they approach things. And I think I can really appreciate January's take on Happily Ever, where it's, a string of happily right nows. So this book was an excellent first pick for reading an Emily Henry book. She's been on my short list of authors that I need to pick up at least one of their works this year. Brandon Sanderson's on there, that kind of thing. But I can see why she is such a beloved author, and I am hoping that I enjoy the rest of her works just as much. I have pretty much most of her backlist in physical form, so I will be sure to start prioritizing those because I really did enjoy this book. And so that will wrap up our video. We read 3 books in this vlog: When the Dark Stands Still, A First Time Caller, and of course Beach Read, all of which were really excellent reads. I had a wonderful reading week, so I hope that if you are watching this video, you had an excellent reading week. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like. If you would like to stick around for a while, please subscribe. Either way, I appreciate you joining me today. Bye!